Okay, hello all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and let's make some games. So this is a bullet hell game, and let's see. I have some work to do on this. I have not done work on this in a while because it's been a busy last few months. What I'm going to do today is enemy waves. So enemies are going to come in onto the screen in waves for basically the gameplay loop of this bullet hell game. I might not get all of that done today, but I'd like to get as much of it as possible today. So we're going to implement waves. I'm going to have... So the basic premise of how this is going to happen is I'm going to use the room editor. I'm going to put enemies that belong to different waves on different layers in the room editor. And those layers are effectively going to be activated one at a time in turn. This is something I've actually sort of done before. This is going to be based on some tower defense systems that I actually created a long time ago when I was messing around with back before I decided that I was going to do a YouTube series for this. Let's see. So right now, all of our instances are on the same layer. We have our player. We have these ent foe explode type enemies. I'm going to get rid of all of these. I'm going to create myself a new instance layer. Let's call this Wave 1. And let's just, foes. Let's put some foes on this layer. So we can put just like a regular, let's put a couple of regular foes in this layer. Maybe in some kind of fancy configuration like this. Right, if I run the game, nothing particularly special is going to happen here. We're just going to take damage as soon as we fly in because... you know, game design, and we can shoot those enemies. They're gonna shoot at us. This isn't anything special. Now, if I were to create another layer and call it something like Wave 2, actually, yeah, I'll approach it this way. So, Wave 2 will have some foes spawning on this side of the screen, and as it stands right now, if I were to just run the game, everything would just appear on the screen at once, and that's not really ideal. I am spawning. My player is spawning like in the corner, despite being in the middle of the room in the room editor, and therefore I am taking damage instantly. I don't know why that is. I'm sure it'll be something I address later. And then, just for good measure, let's create a third one, Wave 3, and these guys can live in the top of the room. There is like an asymmetry here, and that bothers me. Well, it's slightly less asymmetric now. Let's go with that. Anyway, as with before, these enemies are going to spawn instantly. We're not going to have them wait until the screen is cleared of enemies or anything like that. So, let's see, how did I do this before? Alright, well, I guess we'll start at the very beginning. And that is going to be the base enemy class, which all the other foe types derive from. We can assign them a path. I'd like to eventually put things like max health and bullet spread and that sort of thing in a variable definition. I think when I finish the main gameplay part of this series, I will refactor a bunch of these into the variable definitions window. But for now, you know what? For what I'm trying to do now that I'm positioning things in the room editor, it will be really nice to be able to use the variable definitions window and be able to just like click on one of these guys and open their variables window and just mess with whatever's inside. So I think I'll do that. Let's see. So I will handle like wave transitions and wave entrances with a path, with a game maker path, and let me create a subgroup inside of entities foes and call it movement. I'm going to create a path. And let's just call this like path enter from top. And let's see, where is the origin? It's around like here. So I'm going to have enemies follow the path, and they're going to settle into place where their final position is. So let's have the first. Oh, come on! Can I turn on grid snapping? I can turn on grid snapping. Let's have the first one spawn at about 0 and minus 256, like over there. And where is 0, 0? They will transition to 0, 0. And let's see, can I edit this? I feel like I should be able to double click that speed value and edit it that way, but whatever. So this is a very generic path. The enemies are going to start at the first point on the path, move at full speed, and then slowly transition to the second point on the path. And let's see, variable definitions. We can call this path enter, and I will probably have a like a path loop in the middle once they've entered, and they just sort of bob up and down. But the type is going to be an asset, and the asset is going to be this. Now, in the create event, I'm going to go down to the bottom here. Actually, yeah, I'll go down to the bottom here. And in the create event, we can say path start. Our path is going to be self.path enter. Our speed is going to be, this needs to be, I want to say this is like pixel units per step. Let me go with 10. The end action, so what happens at the end is going to be path end action. Oh, no, it's going to be path action stop. And absolute is going to be false. So this path is going to be executed relative to us. Now, if I were to run the game now, and that may not have been relative to us the way I wanted it to. If I set absolute to true, I thought that would have had the enemies start on the path on like 256 units above them, but it is possible that that is not the way paths in GameMaker work. Yeah, if I set it to absolute, then all the enemies just, that admittedly looks kind of cool when they're all bunched up on top of each other, but all the enemies are just going to live in the corner over here, and I'm gonna have to take them all down at once. If they're spawning drops, they're all flying off the screen at the same time. Anyway, I guess in that case I can put all these guys in their starting position, which would be, I want to say like here. Just move those off screen, and if I were to set the absolute argument to back to false, then they should swoop in from the top of the screen, and not like from their starting position. Yeah, there we go. Still about a row too high. Alright, that's better. That's more or less where I wanted them to end up. And then, if I wanted to, the ones that are on the side, maybe don't swoop in from the top, maybe have them swoop in from the side or something like that. And we could instead create ourselves, Control-D, duplicate this, path enter from left, like this, and then instead of this one, let's turn grid snapping on, instead of this one entering from the top, we can come in from about negative 256, 0, and then we could likewise enter from right, and have the same thing, but we are going to enter instead grid snapping. Can I, like, go into my GameMaker preferences and turn that on by default? Because there aren't a lot of situations where I personally find not having grid snapping in the path editor to be super useful. Anyway, the nice thing about variable definitions is that we can assign these in the room editor nice and easy with this dialog. So you are going to enter from the left, and you are going to also enter from the left. And over here on the other side, you are going to enter from the right. You're on wave 2. Like that. And you are also going to enter from the right, like that. And this should have everything swooping in from the sides of the screen. I think I might have done one wrong. Did I see that you are accidentally entering from the right? Did I do that wrong? I did. You should be this. And also, let's put you at your starting positions. I'm pretty sure I had trouble with this when I was using variable definitions for Bombardier also. But if I forget to click the edit button, if I drag something onto the variable definitions window, it will set the default value, which is not what we want. So I'm bad at Game Maker. That's top. This needs to be right. Computers are hard, okay? Lastly, you are entering from the left, and you are entering from the top. All right, left. So with that little episode out of the way, all right, cool. You're all transitioning in the right place. Let's see. This is probably actually going to be reasonably challenging if this is all I have now. That was what, another piece of health? Because there's actually a lot of bullets on screen right now. That was, I don't remember what each of the individual sprites are for the power-up icons for the moment. Anyway, let's see. Where is LMAG Bullet Hell? I'm going to start committing things. Let's see. Usually, whenever GameMaker updates, I like to just make a little commit that just says updated GameMaker so that I can consider that commit and whatnot if something suddenly goes wrong. But that's a minor thing. And I will not commit these changes to the room yet because I'm still working on them, I think. But actually, yeah, I'll save those for later. So next we want to have these waves actually mean something, and to do that I'm going to collect the wave layers into an array with code. And I should probably increase the font size, shouldn't I? I haven't recorded a Game Maker video in a little while, so I'm not in the habit of having the font size be big. Let's see. So I'm going to sooner or later. There is a central game object. Is there not? Is there not a central game object? There might actually not be. There might just be the player. So I'm going to create myself a central game object. This is just going to be like the game, the world, the controller, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it game controller. And I'm also going to create not an object but a struct in the form of a script, which is going to basically just contain all of the level data. I won't call it group level. Do I want to call it that? I'll call it group level. I like to personally prefix my script objects with like group underscore so that I can sort of tell myself that this is a file of code which contains many, many different things. Let's see. This is going to contain the definition of an instantiable struct, which is going to be function level in capital letters. No parameters, at least not for now. Constructor. I will fill in everything that goes inside that soon. The game controller, we can say on... And I'm going to have each of the levels in a separate room, which is something that I did not do in the tower defense game. But I'm going to have each of these levels take place in a separate room, so each of the like faux configurations will be different per level. So I can say other on room start. We can say level is going to equal new level. And this is going to do things like initialize the player score for that level, initialize like waves of enemies, that sort of thing. Firstly, waves of enemies. I can I can create an array of waves, call it self.waves is going to equal an empty array. How ugly do I want to make this code is the question versus how concise do I want to make this code. I think I'll go with not ugly, but also kind of long. So let's say var index is going to equal 0. All right, you know what? I'll spell it out the long way, like with a straightforward but somewhat longer kind of code, and then I'll make it ugly. I'll make it adequately ugly for people who are into that kind of thing. So we're going to iterate over all of the layers in the room that start with wave, and then a number. So I can say var index equals 1, and then something like while true, or something like that. If layer exists, we can say layer with the name of wave plus the string of index. If the layer exists with this name, we can fill this in a moment. If a layer does not exist with this name, we can break out of the loop so that we do not have an infinite loop and therefore the game freezing on us. If the layer exists, var layer data is going to be layer get ID. It's going to be wave plus string of index. Is that the right number of arguments? Because GameMaker IntelliSense is yelling at me. Let me maximize this code window. What's wrong with this? Am I missing a parenthesis somewhere? Got a open. Oh, there needs to be a closed parenthesis here. Are we good? We're good. Layer data is equal to this array push self.waves layer data. So we're going to save a reference to each of these layers on the waves array. This alone is not going to do anything. This is just going to like keep a reference to each and every one of these layers. All the foes are going to behave the same regardless. So I'm going to make use of one of my old favorite functions, and this is a rather obscure function to be an old favorite of mine, by instance deactivates layer. Actually, this is one of the newer versions of my old favorite functions because this instance deactivate layer wasn't a thing until GameMaker Studio 2 came along. But deactivating instances is definitely a favorite of mine. The layer ID can be layer underscore data. This, when it's run, it is going to cause all the foes in every one of these waves to, well, it's going to deactivate all of the instances on a layer, so their step events won't be updated, they won't participate in things like collision checks, they won't be drawn. For all intents and purposes, they don't exist in the game, you only have the references to them. And deactivating everything and then activating all of the foes one at a time is going to, well, not one at a time, but layer by layer is going to allow us to send in each of these waves of foe one at a time, and we will have something that kind of resembles order as opposed to chaos. So I said I'll do the like the short weird version of this code later, but right now this won't actually do anything. This code is never going to be actually run because the game controller does not actually live anywhere in the game. So I'm going to, and I kind of want to like make myself an initialization room for things like menus, UI, and that kind of thing, as opposed to having the entire game live in a single room like Bombadil did. But I'll get to that later. First, in the instances layer, like in the regular instances layer, we're just gonna go and drop this little game controller into the corner. I will put some work into organization later. Now that that exists, now that the game controller exists and is running the game, we appear to have an infinite loop somewhere, which we should not, because like this should return false at some point. Are we not? Oh, you know what I'm not doing? Index plus plus. So that's that value is staying 0 the entire time. This is why infinite loops, even deliberate infinite loops, are dangerous. So the game has started. We do not have any foes on the screen. That is because they are all deactivated. If I were to, I guess I'll do it here. Instance activate layer self.waves index 0. This will activate the first wave. And we are going to have the enemies in the first wave swooping in from the sides. That is more or less correct. I will come up with a better solution for this in a moment, though. First, the weird version of this, the weird but shorter version of this. How many lines of code is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if you count the curly burst lines. We can also say for var index equals 1. Layer exists wave plus string of index index plus plus. We can do this with a for loop. We can just array push the layer data like this, and this should, unless I'm much mistaken, do the exact same thing with much less code. And, oh, you know what I didn't do? I need to deactivate the layer. So that is now 5 lines of code instead of 10 or whatever it was a minute ago. Alright, you're all deactivated. If I were to again... If I were to activate the first one, that is not how you spell the word wave, sir. Nice try. But this should have the same thing happening as before, where the first wave swoops in. Good. Alright, so I'm going to commit this change, or several changes more likely. Where are we going? We're going to add the game controller object, and also the layer object. Added a game controller and a layer object. The reason, by the way, that level is a struct instead of a game maker object is that this game controller is going to have behaviors such as responding to the step event and whatnot, and managing the waves, and the level is only going to basically be there to like contain data. And once in a while, I'll invoke like a send in next wave method or something like that. But for the most part, it doesn't need any fancy like event response or anything like that. I guess if you wanted to, you could architect your game so that the level like keeps track of all the active instances in the room, and if there are no foes left, it just sends in the next one. But I'm not planning on architecting it that way. You could if you want to. That's valid. Let's see. Where was I? I was committing changes. This can be... Am I, by the way, should I... Okay. I was wondering, have I been in the habit of making separate branches for each like, week or whatever, but it seems that I have not. So, I'll leave that as it is. Next... Let's see. I can check off a couple of these tasks on Hack and Plan. And this is going to be a bit awkward, because, like, at the time that I recorded episode 0, where I talked about using this, this was still, like, it wasn't being super actively developed or anything, but, like, you did hear from the developers on social media and whatever periodically, but pretty much as soon as I recorded episode 0, that just went radio silent. And I have no idea if this project is dead or not. I don't know if I could, like, send them an email and say, hi, does anyone still live here or anything like that? And it's kind of a shame, because this is a legitimately interesting project management tool if you're into games, but I'm not sure if it's dead or not. So, go me, I guess. Anyway, assign enemy waves to different room layers. That is done. All right, sure, we'll log those points. Again, the points are made up and the results don't matter, but that was just an estimation for how much work each of these things are going to be relative to each other. I'm not kidding. A fly just flew right into my mouth. And I choked on it. I'm going to do my best to pretend that never happened. Flies are the worst. Aside from all the other bugs that are even worse.
Hey.
Waves. On room start, index the enemies and deactivate them. That is what we did with the for loop a minute ago. Waves. On waves start, activate the enemies and send them in. That is most likely what I'm going to do next. Waves. New wave starts after either all of the enemies are defeated or after a timer expires, or probably both of those things, because if the player takes their time, I want a little bit of a sense of urgency. So I think if the player doesn't move fast enough, I will just send in the next wave anyway, even if there are still enemies on the screen. Foe behavior, default enemy behavior is to swoop into position and then bob up and down. I have not done the secondary part of that yet. So maybe I should do that next, just so that I can finish off something that's already half finished. Foe behavior, once they reach their stable state, implement their own behavior. Okay. These two, I'll do that. For example, enemies won't shoot until they've reached their final position in the path. Alright, so the base foe is going to have a little Boolean variable called active, and then this is going to prevent them from doing anything. Let's see, they will not run their step events if they are not active. If not, if not self.active, we're just going to return from the step event early. We're not going to process the cooldown timer or the can't shoot or anything like that, or any other behaviors that they might have in the future. Do these other foes have a behavior in the step event yet of their own? I'm guessing does nothing, does not. Let me just quickly run through each of these foe types to see if they have a step event. You do not have your own step event. I'm pretty sure most of them just like implement their own version of the shoot method. All right, so chase obviously has its own step event. Radial, you're just gonna shoot in a circle. Aim, you're just gonna, when you shoot, you aim towards the player. Okay. Now if I run the game, the foes are not going to do anything, like, at all, ever, even after they settle into position. And right now they're not even going to settle into position because I deleted this code. I should probably just leave this here while I'm testing things. I think I accidentally just ran the debugger. But, alright, so you're just not going to do anything. You're just going to settle into position, and that's going to be that. So what I will do to activate you is, in a little other event called path ended, self.active is going to be set to true. And that is going to make it so that once the foes reach the end of their path, which they will not ever do because the final path speed is 0, so they are just asymptotically going to get closer and closer to the end without actually ever reaching it in a rather Xeno-esque sort of way. So I'm going to have to give the end of the path a nominal speed of something like 10 to ensure that they actually, you know, get there. Math. Alright, so they're going to settle into place, and they're going to start shooting once they settle into place. Alright, that's what we want to see. Let's see, I should probably commit this again. Foes do not start shooting at you until they settle into place. Alright, let's see, how long have I been recording? I've been recording for 40 minutes. I'm hesitant to make this go any longer than that. This might be a good place to leave it off and leave the rest of the wave management and gameplay things to a separate video. So I'm going to check that one off. All right. You know what? Okay, you know what? Never mind. This is honestly probably pretty close to being finished. So when a wave starts, activate the enemies and send them in. Let me create just... Oh, I forgot I accidentally opened the debugger. Let me create a little method in level that's like, send in wave, and actually I'll make it send next wave. It's going to be equal to function. No. We're going to need a persistent wave counter. So we can say self.wave index equals 0. When we send next wave, we are going to send in the waves that is pointed to by self.wave index. self.wave index plus plus. You could do this plus plus inline if you wanted to, but I think the code legibility gods will have my head if I do that. In the game object, the game controller object, we can do level.send next wave. This is going to launch the first wave, like that. This feels like the correct way to do things. Send. Next, in the game controllers, let's say step event. Actually, yeah. I did say I would separate the data. In the game controller step event, if instance count, no, instance get number. What is it? Instance number. If the instance number of the parent foe class is going to be equal 0, let's say we're going to send in the next wave. I do like to prefix my my instance variables with self. Oh, extra parentheses. When we are in anything other than the create event. And honestly, I've been doing this in the create event as of late, haven't I? Yeah. All right. Consistency. So if I do this, I can shoot at the enemies, and eventually they will stop being enemies, and then the next wave will come in, and then once, and I'm really taking damage here. Once the third wave is finished, the game is going to crash because we are going to try and send in wave 4, and there is no wave 4, like that, or wave index 3, if you will. I should probably put a little bit of protection on here. I'll just say function complete is going to be something that returns true, false. If self.wave index equals array length self.waves -1, that is going to mean that if we have sent in the last wave already, we're going to return true for complete and false otherwise. If you wanted to, of course, you could simply return this and not have all this extra code floating around like that. And now, if self.level.complete, we can do something like show the U win screen, else we're going to send in the next wave, and that should prevent us from accidentally crashing the game when we finish off the final wave. So let me just take a moment. Oh, you know what? Okay, the last wave didn't come in. That's because we don't want the -1 here. That is because if there are 3 waves, once you sent in the third wave, wave index is going to be equal to 3. 3 is going to be the array length, and you don't want to check for one more. All right, let me try that again. I'm so used to things dealing with array indices being like -1 or whatever, but sometimes that -1 comes built in. All right, you know what? We're actually coming through here faster than I really expected to. All right, now I have 0 health and all, which is fabulous. That's a attack speed power, but the last wave did not crash the game, which is what we want. So send in a wave all right, that's pretty good. I think I overall actually made better time on this than I expected to. I kind of went into this assuming that this would be broken up over 2 videos, but that actually wasn't bad. Once on wave start, activate the enemies and send them in. That has been finished. New wave starts after all the enemies are defeated or a timer expires. I will deal with timers. Alright. Let's deal with timers. Let's say wave timer is going to be equal to 60. This will probably become like a game setting or a compile time macro or some other kind of configuration option later. But for now, I'm just going to set it to... Actually, for the sake of testing it, let's make it 15. So after 15 seconds pass, and this will be in seconds, after 15 seconds pass, the next wave will be sent in automatically. And since this is something that needs to be like continuously tracked by the game, I'll put this in the game controller object. Okay, so the longer I think about the architecture of this thing, I do want a separate struct for the level data, but I think that means that it will have to, like, at the very least respond to a step event. So the step event can be basically I'm gonna have an update method for this. You could call it step, you could call it tick, you could call it update, whatever you want. I call it update, but that is going to, we're going to check to see if there are 0 foes here in the level update method, and self.level.update just in the game controller's actual step event that actually responds to the game loop done by the engine. And we can also take this a little farther. Self.wave timer. When did I delete that? I don't remember deleting that line. I mean, I must have done it less than like 2 minutes ago, but I've already forgotten anyway. So we can say if instance number foes equals 0, or if self.wave timer is less than or equal to 0. Then, as with before, if the final wave has been sent in, we'll do the you win routine, else we'll send in the next wave. However, this can now evaluate true even if there are still foes on the screen, and it would be awkward if the game ends while there are still foes on the screen just because it timed out and you wasted time. So I'll throw an extra condition in here. If there are no more foes, then we'll show you win. Otherwise, we just won't do anything. Okay. All my parentheses in the right place? I think so. When you do send in next wave, I will want the wave timer to be reset to, I think I said 15. Right now, this is not going to be shown on the user interface anywhere, but I'm just gonna... You know what? That's not ever taken down, is it? The other thing I'm going to need to do... we could say minus equals like 1 over 60. We could say minus equals the delta time value. What I've been tending towards when it comes to like not being tied to exactly 60 frames per second is using 1 over game get speed FPS. Which is going to return 1/60th if you're running at 60 frames per second. It'll return 1/30th if your game is running at 30 frames per second. But it won't ever change. And like if your game is supposed to run at 60, but it's only actually performing at 50 FPS, it won't ever return 150. It'll just assume 160, and the game will still slow down, but you won't have a bunch of like frame rates hard coded into your game anywhere. Which I think is a reasonable compromise between actual delta time, which introduces some interesting mathematical problems, and not having your game hard-coded to run at a specific speed. I forget if I did that in Bombardier or not. I might have. In fact, is there like a... Did I have like a global delta time value anywhere? Like, okay, I do. This is... Oh, it looks like I already did that. Okay, so 1 over the game speed. I told you it's been a while since I've looked at this code. 1 over the game speed is the DT macro. Like that. Okay. now let me try to run the game. And this is going to, I'm just going to idle over here for 15 seconds. Can I bring up the Windows clock in the corner of the screen so we can see when that counts off? I want to say it's been about half that time, so maybe at 35, the next one should swoop in. Can I call it or what? All right. So wave 3 should swoop in at 2:08:50 p.m. Almost there. All right. And 2:09:05 is when, like, you would think the next wave should come in, but it won't do that because there is no next wave, and all that should happen is the game should not crash. Okay, cool. That's good. GitHub. Let's see. Before I commit this, let me actually... I'm going to make wave duration just 60. I did say that I would do that, and when you send in next wave, you will reset the wave timer to that duration. Okay. So the timing mechanism works. If I were to come back over here, we'll do that. And all right, cool. That counts as 15 points, 15 arbitrary made-up internet points. Full behavior. Default behavior is to swoop into position and then bob up and down. Do I really... Is that something I really want? Is that something that would just be, like, a little distracting? I'm thinking that'll... I won't do that. That is just something I decided right now. As you probably remember, I did call this variable definition path_enter instead of just path. Sort of assuming that there would be like a path loop or something like that, but I'm not sure if everything on the screen was bobbing up and down. That would be slightly like vertigo-y. So maybe I won't do that. Maybe some special enemies will like rotate in a circle around the screen or something like that. In which case I can easily add a little bit to this code, but maybe not right now. Oh, you know what I could do? I could just I could have this set to like undefined or whatever, and then in path end, if path exists, self.path_loop, path start, what did I make the speed? 10. The end action can be path action loop, path action continue. Oh, restart. And absolute will be false. So things that don't have a loop path will just not do the loop path. I think I'm going to want that to be -1 because I don't know off the top of my head what the like where path indices or just asset indices in GameMaker in general start counted from nowadays. So you are just going to settle into place. If I were to, for whatever reason, give you like path, like loop, bounce, or something like that, we could, one, make path, loop, bounce actually look like something, and the first point can be like grid snapping. The first point can be like this, like that. The second point can be like, actually the first point should be at 0, 0. Can be there, and the third point can be back at the origin, or something like that. And then, hang on, let me actually assign that to something so you can, where is wave 1? So let's just give you a random loop of bounce. Yeah, that's weird. That's very weird. I'm gonna not include that, but if I want the option, it will be there. And also, I'm going to delete path, loop, bounce just to make sure that I don't accidentally set it to something and then have it look completely horrendous. Alright. Alright. This may well be a feature that I never use again, but if I want to, it's there. So now I'm going to end the video. And if I were to look at this project dashboard, how much by way of completion do we have? So Sprint 1 gameplay is almost complete. This is 36 of the 42 work items are closed. Most of the points, 87% of the points are closed. As for the project overall, we have about a quarter of the way there. And how many episodes am I into this project? I want to say like 7, 8. I haven't been counting. Sprint 1 should probably end at the next video, and after that, we'll have what I guess I'll call like a minimum viable product, vertical slice, whatever you prefer. And Sprint 2 is going to focus on game UI and probably things like tracking scores and whatever, and important stuff like that, and presenting it to the player. That should hopefully go a little bit faster. Why? Okay, yeah. Most of these are like a low point value because I don't think displaying like the timer on the game UI is going to be a tremendous amount of work or anything like that. But my name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. If you want to play with this project for yourself, look for the GitHub repository down in the video description. I try to post about 2 game dev videos a week. One let's make a game like this, and one tutorial, particularly focusing on the weird things you can do in Game Maker. And believe me, we will be getting to the weird stuff in this game in due time. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute towards these videos being made, you can look for the links in all the usual places. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Then Nothing Happened, Squarecrow, Sindra Larson, Posho, Gunnar Clovis, Game Maker, Emily Koyo, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, and Army Armbrester for supporting these videos. If you want to see your name in the credits or hear yourself shouted out at the end like this, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.